If you're enjoying your time in your guitar class, it's possible that at some point you've considered studying music in college, majoring in music, minoring in music. What kind of music? How do I feel about that? How do my parents feel about that? There can be so many questions. So today I just want to chat with you a little bit about what that means. And I'm wearing my very casual college clothes and my very casual mom clothes, right? Because I want to have this be a very approachable conversation that makes you feel comfortable talking about it with your teachers, with your family, so that you can reach the right decision for you. So we're going to cover a few different areas, and I just invite you to consider and then have some conversations because the answers to all these questions are different for everybody. So first of all, if you're going to study some kind of music in college, what do you want to study? Do you want to study music education? Do you want to be a teacher like the person who's leading these classes you're in? Do you want to study music therapy? Do you even know what music therapy is? Do you want to study performance? Does that sound terrifying? What do you do with a degree in performance? Music therapy, I understand I'll be working with people trying to help them with different conditions, right? And with music education, I understand what I can do. I can get a job as a teacher. What do I do if I have a performance degree? There are so many things. I want to just kind of, that one, because it's more nebulous, I want to describe just a little bit some of the various outcomes that I've seen from my friends as I went through school, from my students as I've been a teacher. You can be a concert performer, of course. The percentage of those that pursue a degree in performance and then become world famous guitarists, the percentage is small. But that doesn't mean that pursuing a performance degree is a bad idea for you. It's a bad idea if you don't want to do it, but there are a lot of other possible outcomes. So people who study performance may go on and do graduate school in performance. They may go on and do graduate school in music history or in music theory or in composition and film scoring. They may discover, I like music a lot, I like performing, but I actually really like this other aspect of music. So sometimes they go a different direction, still in the world of music. Sometimes they do an undergraduate degree in performance and then afterwards get a teaching credential so they can still do the teaching, but they wanted to master their instrument first, which is a great thing. Sometimes they do go into performance, but not necessarily on stage at Carnegie Hall. Sometimes they're pursuing careers as what we would call kind of like a gig artist, whether they play smaller, more local concerts, or they're playing background music in parties and weddings and things like that. There are all kinds of ways in which you can make a living doing music. Probably not as much money as the doctors make, but you can make a living. And a big part of the income of people who pursue performance degrees is often private teaching. That can be through a music store, that can be building your own private studio, that can mean you going out and getting a certification in something like Suzuki, guitar teaching, where you have the opportunity to have kind of the system behind you that gives you some sort of credibility right out of the gate and kind of a path to follow. Some people make their own path. Some people follow a path. All ways are fine, but all of these are different options with a performance degree still working in the world of music. Now, let me just say that just because you pursue a performance degree doesn't mean that you have to be a musician. There are all kinds of people who have a performance degree and then they go to law school or pursue any other myriad of degrees. Think about all the people who get a degree in English or philosophy. They're not becoming concert English people or concert philosophers. Have you ever heard of that, right? They use that degree and the general knowledge of their undergraduate work to find their path in life. So sometimes people who just really like the idea of learning their music to a higher level, they still pursue music and then kind of figure out their path later, graduate school. So I want you not to be afraid of the concept of a major in music because there are about as many different paths possible as there are of you watching this video. And it really has to do with kind of your interest in the art and your willingness to kind of live outside the comfort zone of knowing I will pursue this degree and I will get this job. It's probably not that straightforward. So having this willingness to be open-minded and explore and really rely on your mentors is one of the most important things you can do to be successful in your path should you study music. One other thing I want to talk about, we're running short on our time here, but what kind of school would you go to? Would you go to a community college because perhaps more affordable, a little closer to home? There are some amazing community colleges with strong guitar programs. It's a great way to start. Then there are state schools. There are some that have really great guitar programs, some that don't even have one, right? So you need to find out what's in your area. There are private schools that maybe have more of a liberal arts emphasis, but have a music program, and maybe it's a degree, it's a Bachelor of Arts instead of Bachelor of Music. So perhaps a little bit less music intensive, but gives you a more well-rounded degree and still allows you to focus on your music, which is kind of a nice option for somebody who's maybe not sure. And maybe you can do a double major then, which is a good option for someone who wants to keep some flexibility in their future. And then there's the conservatory route. I love this. This is the only thing I want to do. This is what I'm going to study. That might be the right path for you. I would give you 2 bits of advice as you're considering all these things. Number 1, see if you can set up a sample lesson with the teacher at the school. I think that for me anyway, my relationship with my private instructor was the most significant factor in my decision and in my satisfaction at the school. So see if you can set up a sample lesson. Most teachers will do that for you. And number 2, see if you can sit in on one of their performance workshops, where usually most of these schools have a weekly opportunity for their students to get together, to play for one another, to receive feedback. If you can have a chance to sit in on one of those performance workshops, it gives you a real sense for the community of that school. And it might tell you if that seems like the right fit for you. If it's too intense, if it's not intense enough, try and see if you can get to know the students, get to know the teacher, and see if you can find the right home for you. At the end of the day, if you decide, this major in music thing is too much for me, you're doing music right now. It means something to you. Consider that most places have a minor in music. You can consider performing in their ensemble. Don't give up. You've worked hard for what you're doing. Keep studying, keep playing, keep finding ways to engage, whether it be a major, don't be scared of it if it interests you, or in just connecting with other people in your community that still do music.
Today we're going to talk about some good repertoire for practicing your right hand technique. I have the perfect set of studies for you. They're composed by a man named Mauro Giuliani, and they were written in the year 1812. Yes, 1812. They've survived the test of time, and believe it or not, they're still one of the most useful tools for any classical guitarist today. Now, if you don't have the music, you can look it up for free at the link in the YouTube description below. But even without the music, you'll probably be able to follow along just fine. We'll cover just the first 5 of these studies today as a guide for how to approach the rest of them. After that, you'll probably get the hang of it, and you can keep going through all the different patterns on your own. These studies are based on 2 very important chords. Here are the 2 chords we're going to use today. This is a C major chord. You've probably done that one before. And then here is a G7 with a B bass alternating with a G bass. Now you want to try to create some clarity by keeping your hand nice and hollow in the palm and making sure all your fingertips are standing up straight. That way you won't block any of the other strings and get like a muted or buzzed sound. Now remember, an arpeggio is essentially a chord. It's just not played with all 3 notes at the same time, or however many notes you have in it. It's played with the notes staggered. And these exercises are going to be all about this rolling style of arpeggios. And we're going to start with number 1. Number 1 is going to be a series of triads that outline the chords for us. We're going to play all of them with P, I, and M. When you're playing block chords, you want to think of the motion like a squeeze, release, so you can get your fingers back to the strings to play the next chords as quickly as possible. And for the last chord, I'm just rolling a P, P, I, M, A free stroke chord, but you can do it any way that you see fit. In number 2, we're going to start our arpeggios going from the lowest note to the highest in each group. This will be a P-I-M pattern as well. Number 3 is going to be a PMI pattern that sounds like this. And remember, for all the arpeggios, we want to try to get back to the string as quickly as possible, so we start plucking from the string. That's called planting. Number 4, we're going to use PIM. And finally, number 5 is going to use an MIP pattern. Now, once you've practiced these exercises slowly, you'll probably be itching to go a little bit faster. We're going to do a playthrough right now of studies 1 through 5. I'm going to put my metronome on at 95 beats per minute. See if you can play along with me. Number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you're practicing these arpeggio patterns, let's remember a few things. Always bring your fingers back to the string as quickly as you can to prepare for the next pattern. Number 2, keep your fingers loose and relaxed for the best tone. And number 3, start slow and work your tempo up notch by notch on your trusty friend, the metronome. That's it for today. Have fun and keep practicing.
Hello everyone. So I've been told to speak about the preparation for our performance. This is a very important subject as we are all destined to perform in public at some point. And we can all say that sometimes it's a tricky experience and a not easy one, because mostly of the stage fright and the stress that it may cause. And the stage fright is something very important when you start to speak about preparation for a performance. This is something normal also, because you have invested so much energy, so much time and patience in it, in this very moment of performance. So it's totally normal to be stressful before and during the performance. And we can add that the guitar is a very soft instrument, is a very delicate instrument, and which require a lot of precision in it. So it's a lot of elements that may cause you stage fright. But you have to deal with it, to accept it, and to deal with it during the performance. That's why I think the most important thing about the preparation for a performance is to know your body, and especially to know how it will react to these effects of stress during the performance and before. The idea is to anticipate it and to prevent it during your practice. You have surely experienced already some of these effects, like cold hands just before performing, or maybe sweating a lot. It's all effects of stress. For me, the most important issue that comes is the muscular memory. What is the muscular memory? The muscular memory is, you maybe already know that, when your fingers move on the fretboard and you don't have to think about it really, the fingers just move. It's like automatic movement because your muscle have learned by itself the movement. This is a very tricky memory because when you're performing, because of the effect of stress, your heartbeat is a bit higher. Maybe you're shaking a little bit your hand is colder. So your muscles are not in the same condition to reproduce exactly the same movement you were doing. And all of that may cause memory blank. And memory blank are maybe the worst nightmare during a performance. So to prevent it, I found a little solution that I will give you. Just take one sentence of the piece you will play, a little sentence, very easy. Here I will take the first sentence of the Nocturne of Britain, for example. It goes like that. Now you will have to close your eyes, and the idea is to look, to be able to see your hand and your fretboard inside of your pupil. So you have to stare at your hand, but close your eyes. The idea by doing this is to be able to know at which position you are and to know your jump into the fretboard. For example, here I'm on the 6th position. Then I know that I will move one fret higher, 5th position and 4. It's all these kind of little details that help you to prevent memory blank and to know exactly where you're going into the fretboard. Another exercise, a little bit more difficult, is to make the same exercise but without the guitar. Maybe when you're going to sleep, or if you're in public transport, for example, to be able to close your eyes and to just see into the same sentence, see your hand moving, and to know, okay, I'm in the 5th, I'm in the 7th, okay, I move here, and then you will be able to know exactly if you know the piece or if it's just muscular memory. This is a very simple exercise, but it's helped me a lot. So, it's all for this video. I hope this very little exercise can help you. Of course, you are more than welcome to find your own exercise and to find your own weakness, to think about it during performance in order to be able to trick yourself to find exercise that can prevent it. Bye-bye, see you soon.
Welcome to GFAtv. I'm Narezo from Flamenco Explained, and in today's video we're going to look at the Andalusian cadence, but we're going to look at it a little bit differently because we're going to look at where it really comes from, which is flamenco, and how we use it in flamenco. So what's the Andalusian cadence? It's basically, right, which has been used in everything that you can imagine, from a lot of classical stuff that you guys know to, you know, the Stray Cats and what have you. So what are we doing really? If we're analyzing this from the point of view of Western harmony, well, it's a 6 chord, a 5 chord, a 4 chord, and then it should be a 3 minor 7 chord, right? But it's not. It's a 3 major, and that's where it all kind of falls apart in terms of analyzing it from Western harmony point of view. So let's not even worry about that stuff. Let's just say, it's minor, major, 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 right? The whole sound of flamenco is based around this chord progression to a certain extent, but really the sound of flamenco is based around this contradiction that we've got a major chord, and the scale, as we all know, in flamenco is Phrygian, right? Except Phrygian is a minor scale, right? We have flat 3, and in the E chord, we have a natural third, or major 3. That contradiction, the minor scale with that chord, is what makes the sound of flamenco. And in all kinds of funny ways, we get this chord progression combined with this scale, right? And the fact that we have the G sharp here means that we add to the scale that G sharp from the E major chord. So now we have the G natural from the scale, the G sharp from the chord, right? And it starts to seem like a lot of the options we have, right, in a harmonic minor. Which is why if we play it the way a lot of people use it outside of flamenco, it seems like, at least to my ear, it wants to resolve back to A minor, right? It feels like we're in A minor. But in flamenco, it doesn't feel like we're in A minor. It feels like we're in E, right? There's a lot of names for this. I just call it flamenco Phrygian. It's this sort of weird Phrygian thing that has the minor, the Phrygian scale, and the major chord. So let's take a look at how we actually use this in flamenco by looking at a little bit of flamenco. We're going to use these chords in a very realistic way that we would in flamenco, which is this. So what are we doing here? We're taking this A minor chord, and then we're playing a G7, and then this F that you've heard before, right, with the open strings. Now, part of what makes flamenco sound like flamenco is that the music really comes from, or at least the accompaniment, the guitar part, comes from guitar players. And as we all know, guitar players think a little bit differently for reasons we don't need to get into. But we have these open strings available to us, and we're using them here in ways that we might not have thought to do if we were playing a piano or a harp or any other polyphonic instrument. But in this case, it's just sort of the way the guitar works. We use these open strings all over the place to get these very flamenco-y sounds. These very guitar-y sounds is really what it comes down to, right? So this G7, right? We're not going to play the E on top just because I don't like the way it sounds. And then this chord is a very flamenco-y chord, right? We've got the B and the E, which is the sharp 11, which is a Lydian sound, the E, which is the major 7. And that's, again, part of this flamenco thing. And we're resolving to here. So let's take a look at this chord progression. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then our familiar, right? Let's look at that one more time. A minor, G, F, E, F, E. Now we're going to stay on the E. We're going to strum the whole chord and do this sort of trilly thing. And then we're going to play F again. And then we're going to resolve. And I'm going to count it in 12 this time because that's what we do in flamenco. We'll talk about that later. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's how we start to use the Andalusian cadence in flamenco, the right way. Actually, the way it's used in Andalusia. And now the last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put this together with what we did in our first video by using this sort of resolution phrase as a turnaround. So when we get to the end of this from last week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're in a loop. If we want, we can go right back to the top. And that's one of the ways, again, that we'll get into in our last video of how everything plugs into everything else in flamenco.